My child, I see you. I see the heavy, unspoken exhaustion that you carry with you every single day. It is a quiet, lingering fatigue, the kind that does not simply vanish with a single night of sleep or a brief moment of rest. I watch as you wake up in the quiet hours of the morning, take a deep breath, and immediately begin bracing yourself for whatever the day might demand of you. You carry a weight that no one else can see, an invisible burden of responsibility, persistent worry, and endless calculation. I know how deeply tired you are. I see the private moments when you are entirely alone, perhaps sitting in your car, before walking into the house, or standing quietly at the edge of your day, when the brave face you wear for the world finally slips. In those hidden moments, I see you allowing yourself to feel the crushing, suffocating pressure of trying to hold your entire world together by your own strength. You have convinced yourself that this is simply what is required of you. You believe that if you just think hard enough, plan carefully enough, and worry long enough, you can somehow protect yourself and the people you love from the harsh uncertainties of life. You have become the weary architect of your own survival, constantly scanning the horizon for the next problem to solve, the next crisis to avert, and the next fire to extinguish. But my beloved child, surviving is not the same as living. I did not breathe life into your lungs simply so you could endure a grueling marathon of anxiety. You are operating under the exhausting belief that you are entirely on your own, fighting a solitary battle against a tide that never stops rolling in. You feel incredibly lonely in your struggle. Even when you are surrounded by family, friends, or coworkers, there is a profound isolation that comes from believing everything ultimately depends on your shoulders. You nod and smile, telling everyone that you are fine, that you have it all under control, while inside your heart is racing with the fear of dropping even a single piece of the fragile life you are trying to balance. You feel that if you stop moving, if you stop managing, if you stop worrying for even 1 second, everything will collapse around you. That is a terrifying way to live, and it is breaking my heart to watch you carry a yoke that was never meant for your neck. Perhaps you feel a sense of guilt as you hear these words. Perhaps you hear a whisper of shame telling you that your faith should be stronger by now, that you should not be struggling with this much doubt and fear. You might think I'm looking down on you with disappointment, judging you for your stubbornness and your relentless need to control your circumstances. But I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am not looking at you with condemnation. I am looking at you with boundless, overwhelming compassion. I do not see a failing believer who lacks faith. I see a frightened, bruised child who is desperately trying to stay afloat in a turbulent, unpredictable ocean. I understand exactly why you hold on so tightly. I know the history of your heart. I know the times in your past when you trusted and were left disappointed. I know the moments when you felt abandoned, when you had to step up and rescue yourself because no one else was there to catch you. Your self-reliance is not born out of arrogance. It is born out of survival. It is a shield you forged in the fires of your past pain. You learned the hard way that the world is a fragile place, and you decided that the only safe hands are your own. I understand your stubbornness. My child, I have traced every tear that led you to build these defensive walls around your heart. But I must tell you the truth, because my love for you is too great to leave you trapped in this exhausting cycle. The walls you built to protect yourself have become a prison. True lasting transformation is available to you, but it requires a brave and difficult choice. It requires stepping away from your fierce self-reliance. It requires you to slowly, intentionally lower your shield and allow me to be your ultimate protector. This is the central promise I am making to you today. If you will simply choose to trust me, not just with your eternity, but with your practical everyday realities, your life will be profoundly transformed. The world around you demands that you stay in control. The culture you live in praises the hustle, glorifies the grind, and tells you that your value is tied to your ability to manage every outcome and produce every result. The world screams that vulnerability is weakness and that surrender is defeat. But my kingdom operates on an entirely different rhythm. I am offering you something the world can never give you. I am offering you absolute rest. I am inviting you to trade the heavy, suffocating chains of your own expectations for the gentle, life-giving freedom of my grace. Choosing to step out of the driver's seat of your life will feel incredibly unnatural at first. It will feel terrifying to let go of the wheel. But I promise you, faith in my wisdom is the wisest, safest choice you will ever make. You are desperately crying out for a sudden fix. I hear your prayers, and I know exactly what you are asking for. You are pleading for an immediate escape hatch from your current struggle. You want the financial pressure to vanish overnight. You want the broken relationship to instantly heal. You want the confusing situation to resolve itself before the sun goes down. You are asking for a dramatic rescue, a swift and powerful miracle that will instantly change your external circumstances so that you can finally breathe again. You believe that if I just change your situation, your anxiety will instantly disappear. But my precious child, if I simply changed your circumstances without changing your heart, your relief would only be temporary. The moment the next storm arrived, the moment a new uncertainty appeared on your horizon, you would immediately return to your exhausting cycle of worry and self-reliance. I do not want to give you a temporary reprieve. I want to give you permanent, unshakable freedom. Therefore, I am inviting you into a much deeper relationship with me before I change the landscape around you. I am not ignoring your pleas for a miracle, but I am establishing a vital, unchangeable foundation in your life. This is the core truth you must embrace, a sacred principle that will guide everything we do from this moment forward. My peace must always come before my miracle. I want to calm the raging storm inside your mind before I calm the storm raging around your life. If I grant the miracle before you learn to trust me, you will worship the relief instead of the rescuer. You will attribute your safety to the changed circumstance rather than to my faithful hand. I want to anchor your soul so deeply in my love that external circumstances lose their power to dictate your internal joy. True transformation begins in the quiet, unseen spaces of your heart. It begins when you realize that my presence in the middle of your fire is far more valuable than an immediate exit from the flames. Take a deep breath right now and let this truth wash over your weary spirit. Your struggles are not invisible. Your pain has not gone unnoticed. I have cataloged every sleepless hour, every anxious thought, and every silent tear you have shed. You are fully seen, fully known, and deeply, unconditionally loved. You do not have to explain your exhaustion to me. I already know it intimately. I am standing right beside you, gently reaching out. My hand asking you to let me carry the heavy bags you have been dragging for far too long. The journey we are about to take together will challenge everything you have relied upon. It will require you to confront the strategies you use to keep yourself feeling safe. It will not always be easy to uncurl your tightly clenched fists and leave your future entirely in my hands. But it is the only path that leads to genuine, lasting peace. You have tried doing it your way, and you have seen where it leads. Now I am asking you to try it my way. The transformation you are longing for is waiting for you just on the other side of your surrender. To begin this profound healing, we must first look honestly at the heavy burden you are so desperately trying to balance. We must examine the exhausting strategy you have been using to navigate your days and uncover why it is actually blocking the very peace you seek. We must look closely at the heavy illusion of your own control. You believe that if you map out every possible scenario, you can protect yourself from the unexpected. You treat your mind like a fortress, constantly reinforcing the walls with contingency plans, backup options, and worst-case scenarios. When you lie awake at 2 a.m, staring into the darkness, you are not simply struggling to sleep. You are working. You are endlessly calculating, trying to piece together a puzzle when you do not even have all the pieces. This is the heavy illusion of your own control. It is an illusion because despite all your frantic efforts, the future remains entirely out of your hands. You cannot force the wind to stop blowing, and you cannot dictate the behavior of the waves. Yet you exhaust yourself trying to steer the ocean. I watch you carry this impossible burden, and my heart aches for the peace you are missing. You have convinced yourself that worry is a form of preparation. That anxiety is simply the price you must pay to keep your life from falling apart. But my child, I want you to see what this tightly gripped control is actually doing to you. It is not keeping you safe. It is keeping you captive. It is an endless cycle of anxiety that drains the color from your days and the rest from your nights. Every time you try to play the author of your own life, you step into a role you were never created to fill. You are trying to write the ending of a story while you are still standing in the middle of a chapter, and the effort is leaving you profoundly depleted. You are emotionally bankrupt and spiritually isolated entirely because you refuse to let anyone else hold the pen. You think that if you surrender everything you have worked so hard to hold together will instantly shatter. You view letting go as a terrifying failure. But the truth is, your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness. It is simply a symptom of carrying a weight I never designed you to carry. Your human frame was formed from the dust of the earth. I shaped you with incredible resilience and a deep capacity for love. But I did not build you to be omniscient. I did not wire your mind to comprehend the vast, intricate complexities of tomorrow. When you try to bear the weight of the future, your spirit breaks under the pressure, much like a delicate branch trying to support the weight of an entire tree. I never asked you to know exactly how your current struggle will be resolved. I never demanded that you figure out the path through the wilderness before you take the first step. That is my job. Yet you constantly measure your wisdom against the massive looming mountains in your life, and you feel entirely inadequate. You feel inadequate because you were never supposed to move those mountains by your own strength. This is where we must confront the futility of human wisdom compared to my divine perspective. You look at your circumstances through a very narrow window. You see only the immediate storm. You see the unpaid bills, the broken relationship, the medical report, the silent room. You see the clouds gathering, the rain falling, and the rising floodwaters threatening to pull you under. Because your vision is limited to this present moment, you naturally panic. Your logic tells you that the storm will destroy you, so you scramble to build your own shelter out of worry and frantic planning. But from my eternal perspective, I am not merely watching the storm. I am using the very rain you fear to water the seeds of your future. I see the beautiful conclusion I am weaving together long after these dark clouds have passed. Where you see a dead end, I see a doorway. Where you see a devastating loss, I see the painful clearing of the ground for a greater harvest. I want you to gently examine the true cost of your self-reliance. What has your constant worrying actually achieved? Has it added a single day to your life? Has it changed the heart of the person who hurt you? Has it miraculously deposited provision into your bank account? No. All your frantic efforts have done is rob you of the present moment. Your desperate attempts to control tomorrow have only stolen the peace I provided for you today. You are paying an incredibly high price for an illusion. You are sacrificing your joy, your health, and your intimacy with me, all to maintain the appearance that you are the master of your fate. But deep down, you know that your tight grip cannot force the outcome you seek. If human effort and intense worrying were enough to fix your life, you would have healed yourself a long time ago. I understand the world has taught you a very different lesson. From a young age, you were told that to succeed, you must do everything yourself. Over time, that independence morphed into an isolating fortress. You began to believe asking for help was a vulnerability you could not afford. So you gripped the steering wheel of your life until your knuckles turned white. Every time you hit a bump, your instinct was to grip harder. But look at where that tightly clenched control has brought you. It has brought you to the edge of spiritual burnout. It has left you standing in a barren desert of your own making, wondering why the waters of my peace feel so far away. Giving up control is not giving up hope. I know that is your greatest fear. You believe that if you stop fighting, if you lay down your weapons, and stop trying to force the doors open, then all is lost. You think that surrender equates to passive resignation, a sad acceptance of defeat. But in my kingdom, surrender is the exact opposite of defeat. It is the most courageous, active, and powerful decision you can ever make. Surrender is the moment you stop fighting against the current and finally allow the river of my grace to carry you toward the destination I have already prepared. It is not giving up on your future. It is simply transferring the responsibility for that future from your weak shoulders to my capable hands. For so long you have associated holding on with safety. But holding on is exactly what is causing your pain. Picture a child clinging to a sharp piece of broken glass, terrified to drop it, because they believe it is a precious diamond. The tighter they squeeze, the deeper it cuts, causing agonizing pain. As a loving parent, I am kneeling beside you, gently asking you to open your hand. I am not trying to take away your treasure. I am trying to remove the very thing that is causing you to bleed. Your illusion of control is that broken glass. You are gripping it tightly, and your soul is bleeding peace, joy, and hope. I am asking you to let it drop. Letting go is the first courageous step toward genuine transformation. It takes immense bravery to admit that you do not have all the answers. When you finally loosen your grip, you will not fall into the abyss you have been dreading. You will fall directly into my protective embrace. You will discover that the very hands you thought were keeping your life from falling apart were actually the only things keeping you from experiencing the supernatural support of my everlasting arms. You are simply called to be my beloved child, walking hand in hand with your Father, trusting that I know the way through the dark forest. You are beginning to see that the prison of your anxiety was locked from the inside. You always had the key. The key was, and always will be, your willingness to trust me more than you trust your own understanding. As you look at the heavy illusion of your own control, let it shatter. Let the realization wash over you that you are entirely incapable of managing the universe, and realize that this is incredibly good news. Holding on brings pain, while letting go invites my protective embrace. You were never supposed to be the master of the storm. You were only supposed to be the one resting securely in the boat with me. As the grip of your own planning begins to loosen, you are finally ready to hear the invitation I have been whispering to your weary soul. Listen closely to that whisper now, my child. It is a gentle, persistent call that has been echoing beneath the noise of your anxious thoughts for a very long time, patiently waiting for you to quiet your mind long enough to hear it. I am not calling you to work harder. I am not asking you to somehow find a hidden reservoir of strength buried deep within your exhausted frame. I am asking you to do the very thing you have been most afraid to do. I am asking you to rest. Come to me. Bring the heavy, suffocating yoke of anxiety you have been wearing and lay it down at my feet. You have worn it for so long that it has left deep, painful calluses on your spirit. You have come to believe that this crushing weight is simply a normal part of existing in a broken world. You think waking up with a racing heart is the unavoidable price of caring about your future. But it was never my design for you to carry the crushing responsibility of tomorrow. I am extending a deeply personal, loving invitation to trade that terrible burden for my gentle yoke. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light, because I am the one carrying the actual weight. I ask only that you walk beside me, tethered to my strength, allowing my grace to pull the load you could never move on your own. I want you to begin seeing this concept of trust not as a terrifying risk, but as your ultimate refuge. For your entire life, you have been taught that stepping out of control is a dangerous gamble. You have been conditioned by past hurts and unexpected betrayals to believe that trusting anyone other than yourself usually ends in profound disappointment. Because of this, you look at the idea of surrender as if I am asking you to jump off a cliff into the dark, hoping you will miraculously sprout wings before you hit the ground. But my beloved child, surrender is never a free fall into emptiness. It is a deliberate, secure step into an ancient fortress that cannot be shaken. Trusting me is the safest place you could ever reside. When the storm rages outside, you do not have to stand in the open fields fighting the relentless wind with your bare hands and feeling the cold rain sting your face. You are invited to run into the shelter of my presence and let the thick, unshakable walls of my sovereignty absorb the brutal impact of the storm. Finding rest in my presence does not mean the storm immediately vanishes, but it means the storm can no longer touch your soul. Choosing faith over fear is indeed the wisest choice you will ever make, because it seamlessly moves you from a place of desperate vulnerability into a place of divine protection. I know perfectly well how entirely unnatural it feels to simply stop striving. You live in a world that constantly measures your worth by your productivity, a culture that praises the exhausted and applauds the overworked, as if fatigue were a badge of honor. When you pause to catch your breath, a demanding voice inside your head immediately accuses you of being irresponsible. When you decide to stop trying to force a closed door to open, you feel a deep, unsettling guilt, as if you are giving up on your own future and abandoning the people who rely on you. I see the inner conflict tearing at your heart right now. You desperately want the peace I am offering, but you are terrified that if you let your guard down for even a moment, your whole world will quickly unravel. Your mind races with 1,000 what-ifs, convincing you that your constant vigilance is the only glue holding your fragile life together. I validate that fear. My child, I understand why stopping feels remarkably like failing. But you must realize that the world's definition of success is a relentless, unforgiving treadmill that will eventually break your spirit. My definition of success begins with a quiet, trusting heart that knows it does not have to earn its right to exist or fight a lonely battle for its own survival. Here is a crucial spiritual lesson that you must internalize if you truly desire the deep transformation. We are talking about you cannot possibly receive what I have prepared for you while your hands are completely full of your own plans. Picture yourself standing before me right now, your arms wrapped tightly around a massive, heavy pile of blueprints. These are the blueprints you frantically drew up in the dark. They are your backup plans, your worried calculations, your defensive strategies, and your desperate attempts to fix what is broken. You are holding them so tightly against your chest that your muscles are shaking from the effort. Meanwhile, I am standing right in front of you, holding a beautiful, flawless, finished masterpiece. The exact provision, profound healing, and clear direction you have been begging me to provide. But you cannot take it because your hands are already full. Transformation cannot begin until you are willing to let your own blueprints fall to the floor. You must empty your hands to receive the abundant grace I have prepared. Letting go of your heavily guarded plans is the painful but absolutely necessary prerequisite to experiencing my provision. I know you are crying out for a sudden change in your circumstances. You want the problem resolved today, and you want the pain to end immediately. But I must continue to reinforce the foundational truth that will permanently save your life. My peace must come before my miracle. True rescue always begins inside your mind, long before it ever alters your external reality. If I were to suddenly fix your finances, heal your broken relationship, or open that locked door without first teaching you how to trust me, you would remain a terrified prisoner to your own anxiety. The very next time a new challenge arose, you would instantly revert back to your exhausting self-reliance, trembling all over again. I love you far too much to merely change your situation while leaving your soul in agonizing torment. The greatest miracle I can offer you right now is the quiet, unshakable assurance that I am completely in control even while the problem still loudly exists. I want to build an impenetrable sanctuary of peace within your mind, a sacred place where fear can no longer dictate your heartbeat and worry can no longer steal your sleep. When you learn to truly rest in my presence, While the chaotic waves are still crashing against the sides of your boat, you strip the enemy of his greatest weapon against you. Anxiety entirely loses its power when it no longer drives your daily decisions. This is exactly why the call to lay down your heavy yoke is the most urgent life-saving invitation you will ever receive. It is not a secondary option for the highly spiritual. It is the only way forward for your survival. I am gently urging you to stop fighting the current. You have been swimming furiously upstream for so long, swallowing water, your muscles burning with the intense effort, completely terrified that if you stop paddling, you will drown. I am telling you to stop. Just stop. Turn over onto your back, be entirely still, and let the powerful river of my grace carry you. I am the deep water that holds you up. I am the steady current that knows exactly where to take you. You simply do not need to fight the river anymore. Feel the strong, undeniable emotional pull of my love, drawing you away from the chaotic noise of your own frantic efforts. Let the heavy tension begin to finally leave your shoulders. Let your rapid breathing slow down into a steady, peaceful rhythm. Give yourself the profound permission to say, I do not know how to fix this situation, and that is completely okay, because my Father does. There is a beautiful, life-changing relief in simply allowing me to be God, so that you can finally return to just being my beloved child. The harsh yoke of self-reliance has deeply bruised you, but my gentle yoke will restore your soul. Step securely into the refuge I have built specifically for you. Allow me to hold the pieces of your life together as you rest here quietly in my arms, breathing in the absolute truth of my sovereignty. Your weary spirit is quietly gathering the massive strength it needs. You are finally preparing your heart to look deeper, getting ready to confront the long hidden shadows that have kept you running for so long. I know exactly what hides within those shadows. When the noise of the day fades, and you are finally left alone in the quiet of the night, those shadows step forward and take the shape of very real, very pressing crises. You see the mounting financial pressure that threatens the foundation of your security, whispering that you will not have enough to survive. You feel the sharp, aching void of a fractured relationship that leaves your home feeling incredibly silent and cold. You stare at the scattered pieces of shattered dreams you once held so tightly, wondering how your life ended up looking so entirely different from the picture you painted in your mind. I see you looking at these massive, tangible mountains. I feel the heavy, frantic beating of your heart as you face the raw, undeniable terror of what might happen tomorrow. It is a profoundly terrifying thing for your human mind to look at a visible, immediate threat and be asked to trust an invisible God to handle it. Your eyes see the unpaid bills on the counter. Your ears hear the heavy silence in a room where laughter used to live. Your physical senses are constantly screaming at you that the danger is imminent, that the boat is taking on water faster than you can bail it out, and that you are about to sink beneath the dark waves. I do not minimize that fear. My child, I do not dismiss your panic as dramatic or foolish. I look at your trembling hands and your tear-stained face, and I do not shake my head in disappointment. So many voices in this world, and perhaps even the cruelest voice within your own mind, have told you that if your faith were real, you would never feel this afraid. They have made you feel a heavy guilt for your anxiety, suggesting that a racing heart is a sin, and your doubt is a sign of spiritual failure. Please listen to my voice. Above all those harsh accusations, I am not offended by your trembling faith. I am the one who formed your delicate frame from the dust of the earth. I understand the exact chemical reactions of fear that flood your mind when you feel threatened. I know how fragile and desperately human you are. When you come to me with hot tears streaming down your face, admitting that you are completely terrified of the unknown, I do not turn my back on you. Your vulnerability does not push me away. It draws my protective embrace even closer. I am the loving Father who immediately reaches out to catch you when you stumble, not a harsh judge standing at a distance, waiting to condemn you for losing your balance. I want you to bring every single one of your darkest doubts directly into my presence. I can handle your desperate questions. I can carry the full weight of your frustration. This is the exact space where you must learn what it truly means to walk by faith and not by sight. Right now, your physical senses are actively deceiving you into a state of absolute despair. Your eyes only show you the thick, ominous storm clouds, completely obscuring the brilliant sun that still shines just behind them. Your logic calculates the odds of your survival, examines the lack of resources, and tells you that victory is mathematically impossible. But human logic is terribly limited because it completely fails to factor in the reality of my grace. When you rely solely on what you can see, you are reading only half the story, and it is the chapter written by your temporary circumstances rather than your eternal Creator. I am asking you to trust the author of the entire book. I know intimately why surrendering your deeply pressing crises to me feels exactly like stepping off the edge of a steep cliff into complete darkness. Every natural survival instinct in your body is screaming at you not to jump. Your mind warns you that letting go of your tight control means you will plummet into absolute ruin. You equate surrender with falling, and falling is terrifying when you cannot see what is waiting at the bottom. But my beloved child, I am the solid ground waiting to catch you. I am the unshakable foundation positioned firmly beneath the turbulent waves. When you let go of the cliff edge of your own understanding, you do not crash into the rocks. You land safely in the center of my perfect will. I want you to pause and gently look back at your own history for a moment. Think about the times in your past when you relied entirely on your own wisdom, your own clever planning, and your own desperate strength to force a solution. Think about the seasons when you pushed ahead without asking for. My guidance convinced that your way was the only way to protect your heart. How often did that fierce self-reliance ultimately lead to deep heartbreak, profound exhaustion, and even greater confusion? Your human wisdom is a fragile compass in the middle of a massive storm. It spins wildly, reacting to every shift in the wind, often leading you further into the dangerous wilderness. You have exhausted yourself trying to be the savior of your own story, taking on a role you were never equipped to play. I am offering you a better way. I am promising you that relying on my wisdom is your ultimate safety. My perspective is not bound by the limitations of time and space. I do not simply see the massive obstacle standing right in front of you. I see exactly how to move it, or how to walk you safely through the very center of it to reach the beautiful, secure destination I have prepared on the other side. You are looking at a closed door and assuming it is a permanent rejection, while I am looking at that same door and using it as a shield to block you from a path that would only bring you harm. When you trust my unseen hand, you align your fragile life with the infinite power that spoke the universe into existence. Because of this truth, I want you to stop running from your specific anxieties. Instead of treating your fear as an enemy to be conquered, I want you to view it through an entirely new lens. This raw terror you feel is actually a profound, beautiful invitation to deeper intimacy with me. When you reach the absolute end of your own strength, when your resources are depleted and your plans have failed, you finally arrive at the exact place where you can discover the beginning of my limitless power. Every fear that keeps you awake at night, every specific worry about your finances or your loved ones is simply an empty space in your heart where you have not yet experienced the full measure of my providing love. Do not try to manufacture a hollow artificial bravery just to prove to the world that you are strong. You do not have to pretend the storm is not loud, and you do not have to smile through the tears just to look spiritual. True courage in my kingdom is not the absence of fear. True courage is feeling the intense weight of the fear, looking directly at the overwhelming odds stacked against you, and making the deliberate, stubborn decision to trust my character anyway. It is the quiet, powerful choice to declare that I am entirely good, even when your immediate circumstances are entirely painful. It is reaching out your hand in the dark, knowing you cannot see mine, but trusting deeply that my fingers are already wrapped securely around your wrist. You are not failing because you are afraid. You are simply standing at the threshold of the greatest spiritual breakthrough of your life. Every time you choose to whisper that you trust me, while your voice is shaking and your world feels incredibly fragile, you are planting seeds of faith that will soon grow into an unshakable fortress of peace. The unseen reality of my love is far stronger than the visible reality of your current crisis. As you begin to truly realize that your trembling, uncertain faith is completely secure within, my unfailing grip, your desperate need to control tomorrow, will naturally begin to fade. You will start to understand the profound divine purpose behind the delay you are currently experiencing, and you will see the careful work I am doing in this waiting season. You feel the heavy, oppressive weight of time passing with agonizing slowness. I see you sitting in the quiet shadows of your room, watching the days turn into weeks and the weeks blur into months, feeling a rising tide of panic because the deadline is approaching and absolutely nothing has changed. You have poured out your heart to me, kneeling until your voice cracked, asking for a desperately needed breakthrough. You have fasted, you have prayed, and you have searched the scriptures for a sign of immediate relief. Yet when you open your eyes, the room is still quiet. The mountain has not moved, and the storm continues to rage. I know intimately how deeply this profound frustration of unanswered prayer wounds your weary spirit. You are exhausted from hoping, and your heart is incredibly bruised from the constant cycle of anticipating a rescue that never seems to arrive. You look around and see others receiving their miracles. You see doors opening for people who seemingly did not have to wait, and a quiet, painful whisper of doubt begins to echo in your mind. You interpret my silence as a personal rejection. You think that because the sky has not split open with your deliverance, I must be angry with you, or perhaps I am withholding my goodness because of a past mistake. You wonder if your faith is simply not strong enough to trigger the miracle. But my precious child, you must erase those cruel lies from your mind. Silence is never an indication of my absence, nor is this delay a form of divine punishment. I am not standing at a distance crossing my arms demanding that you suffer to prove your loyalty. I am sitting right beside you in the dust, holding your trembling hand, executing a flawless plan that your human eyes cannot yet comprehend. You view waiting as a tragic waste of time, a stagnant, useless period where your life is put on hold until your circumstances finally shift. But in my kingdom, the waiting season is never an empty space. It is a profoundly active, sacred workshop. There is a deeply intentional purpose behind this specific delay. Right now, beneath the surface of your life, I am performing a careful, loving pruning process within your soul. Like a master gardener tending to a beloved vine, I am intentionally cutting away the dead branches of your self-reliance. I am stripping away the fragile dependencies you have built upon temporary things, your reliance on human approval, your need for financial predictability, and your deep-seated pride that whispers you can survive on your own intellect. This pruning process is undeniably uncomfortable, and there are days when it physically aches. When I remove a coping mechanism that you have used to protect yourself for years, it feels like a painful loss. But you must understand that I never cut away anything without the express purpose of encouraging greater, more beautiful growth. I am making room in your heart for a harvest you could never produce, while cluttered with your own defensive strategies. You are asking me for a massive, life-altering blessing. You are pleading for a restored relationship, a financial breakthrough, or a completely new beginning. I hear those fervent prayers, and I love the authentic desires of your heart. But I must teach you a vital biblical principle that will protect you for the rest of your life. Your character must be built and solidified before the blessing can be sustained. Imagine placing a heavy, magnificent crown made of solid gold upon the head of a newborn child. The very gift meant to signify royalty and honor would only crush their delicate, undeveloped frame. If I were to hand you the full, massive weight of the miracle you are asking for right this very second, while your faith is still easily shaken by fear, and your mind is still prone to anxious panic, the blessing would eventually destroy you. You would lack the spiritual maturity and the emotional fortitude to steward it properly. You would inevitably begin to worship the provision instead of the provider. The moment a new challenge arose, you would lose everything I gave you, because your roots were not deep enough to hold the tree upright in the wind. This is precisely why I must explicitly remind you of the unbreakable core rule we have established. My peace must come before my miracle. I am purposely and lovingly holding back the external rescue so that I can complete this vital internal transformation first. You are intensely focused on the visible details: the bank account, balance the medical chart, the silent telephone, the empty chair. But I am actively working in the unseen realm. I am orchestrating 1,000 intricate details that you know absolutely nothing about. I am aligning the people, shifting the resources, and perfectly timing the events required for your ultimate deliverance. But far more importantly than moving those external pieces around on the board, I am using this agonizing delay to permanently fortify your heart. When the heart is transformed in the dark, it shines brilliantly in the light. This delay is teaching you profound humility. It is burning away the illusion that you are the architect of your own destiny, replacing it with the beautiful reality that you are deeply, entirely dependent on my grace. That dependence is not a weakness. It is your greatest possible strength. When you finally reach the other side of this trial, you will not look back and praise your own endurance. You will look back and stand in absolute awe of my sustaining power. You will realize that the very best thing I ever did for you was refuse to answer your prayer too early. You will see that a premature blessing would have been an incomplete blessing. I am not building a temporary shelter for your life. I am constructing a permanent, majestic cathedral of faith within your soul, and foundations of that magnitude simply cannot be poured in a single day. Consider what an immediate, frictionless rescue would actually accomplish. If I instantly parted every single sea the moment your feet touched the shoreline, you would never learn how to swim. You would never experience the profound intimacy of trusting me in the deep, dangerous waters. Immediate rescue would leave you spiritually immature forever, dependent on dramatic escapes, rather than developing a quiet, enduring fortitude. You would remain a spiritual infant, easily tossed back and forth by every wave of adversity. The struggle you are currently enduring is not a sign of my neglect. It is the divine forge, where your faith is being hardened into unbreakable steel. A sword is not made strong by being laid softly on a pillow. It is made strong by being placed in the fire, struck heavily, and plunged into cold water. You are feeling the heat of the fire and the strike of the hammer. But I am the blacksmith, holding you securely, shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying immense glory. I know it is incredibly difficult to live gracefully in this painful tension. I watch as you constantly check your phone, nervously, tap your fingers, and mentally calculate how much longer you can possibly hold on before your strength completely gives out. You are treating this beautiful sacred season like a sterile waiting room at a hospital, staring blankly at the walls, desperately hoping your name will be called next. I am gently, lovingly asking you to stop watching the clock. Time is a human measurement, a temporary finite constraint that holds absolutely no authority over my divine promises. The clock is an instrument of anxiety when you use it to measure my faithfulness. You cannot force a winter branch to bloom in the middle of December by standing in the snow and yelling at it. It will bloom precisely when the season changes completely, guided by my flawless design. When you obsess over your timeline, you completely miss the beautiful treasure hidden in the present moment. I do not want you merely enduring this season with gritted teeth, surviving until it is over. I want you actively growing in it, thriving in the shadows because you know the light is holding you. Trusting my perfect timing means letting go of your need to understand the timing and embracing the Creator. You have spent countless hours agonizing over the timeline of your life, comparing your journey to the success of those around you. You see them walking into their promised land, and you wonder why you are still wandering in the wilderness. But you must remember that I do not mass-produce my children on an assembly line. Your journey is intimately, uniquely crafted for your specific soul. The blessing I have for you is entirely different from the blessing I have for them, which means the preparation required to receive it will look entirely different as well. Comparing your waiting season to someone else's harvest only breeds bitterness and blinding envy, which acts as a heavy poison to the peace I'm trying to establish within you. I want you to make a profound shift today. Stop seeking my hand for a sudden rescue and start seeking my face for intimate fellowship. There is immense, life-altering value in this exact moment, right here in the middle of your unresolved pain. It is in this quiet, desperately empty space that you can learn to hear my whisper with crystal clarity. When the loud noise of sudden success and easy comfort is removed, your spirit becomes beautifully sensitive to my presence. I am walking with you through this dry, dusty valley, and if you will stop sprinting toward the exit, you will notice the hidden springs of living water I have placed directly in your path to sustain you. Allow the intense burning impatience to finally drain from your exhausted muscles. Give yourself permission to simply be held by me without demanding an immediate explanation or a swift resolution. As you stop fighting this necessary delay and lean your entire weight into my embrace, the agonizing frustration will begin to slowly, beautifully dissolve. You are beginning to realize that the God who spoke the stars into the night sky is perfectly capable of managing your personal calendar. You can feel the sharp, anxious edges of your impatience softening into a quiet, humbled understanding of my sovereign love. The silence no longer feels like a cold, empty void, but rather a warm, protective blanket, shielding you from premature battles you are not yet equipped to fight. Your heart is genuinely changing. My child, you are stepping out of the frantic, chaotic rush of human expectation and resting deeply in the perfect, intentional rhythm of my grace. The waiting season is no longer your dreaded enemy. It has become the sacred ground where your true strength is finally being born, preparing your mind for the intentional discipline required to navigate the rising waves. As those rising waves inevitably crash against the sides of your fragile boat, the noise of the storm will try to drown out the quiet confidence we are building together. I want you to understand that reaching this place of profound surrender does not mean the wind will immediately stop howling. There will be days when the thunder shakes your chest and your physical feelings scream in absolute panic. When the medical report remains unchanged, the bank account is still empty, or the painful silence from a loved one stretches into another endless week. Your natural human instinct will be to abandon the peace you just found and sprint right back to the heavy wheel of your own control. Your emotions will forcefully demand that you react to the crisis, telling you that if you do not panic, you are somehow not taking the danger seriously. They will try to convince you that resting is irresponsible when your survival is on the line. But, my child, your feelings, as loud and demanding as they are not the ultimate truth of your reality. They are simply an alarm system responding to the visible wind, completely blind to the invisible anchor holding your soul securely in place. You have spent years trapped in the exhausting cycle of catastrophic thinking, passively allowing your mind to drift wherever the dark, freezing currents of fear wanted to take it. The moment a single negative thought entered your mind, you welcomed it in, sat down with it, and allowed it to paint a terrifying, vivid picture of your ultimate destruction. You played out entire heartbreaking scenarios in your head before they even happened, feeling the agonizing sting of future grief for events that were completely fabricated by your own anxiety. You became a passive victim of your own vivid imagination, suffering through countless tragedies that I never wrote into your actual story. But today, I am calling you to step out of that passive victimhood and become a fierce, active participant in your own spiritual growth. I am giving you the practical spiritual tools to fight back against the darkness, not with your own fragile human strength, but with the massive, unshakable authority of my word. It is time for you to learn the vital daily discipline of taking every single thought captive before it has the chance to take you captive. Think of your mind as a beautiful, carefully cultivated garden. For too long, you have left the iron gates wide open, allowing every stray worry, every bitter doubt, and every whispered lie from the enemy to walk right in and plant poisonous weeds among your fragile flowers. I am telling you today to stand up, walk directly to the gate of your mind, and take your rightful position as the fiercely protective watchman of your own peace. When a fearful thought whispers that you are going to lose everything, you must actively arrest that thought at the gate. You do not have to invite it in, offer it a seat at your table, and converse with it for hours. You have the divine absolute authority to turn it away and replace it instantly with the undeniable truth of my eternal promises. This practice requires a profound shift in how you understand what faith actually is. You have often believed that true faith is a warm, comforting emotion, a sudden magical rush of bravery that makes you feel entirely invincible to the pain of the world. Because you do not always feel that warm glow when the lightning flashes and the thunder cracks, you mistakenly conclude that your faith is broken or insufficient. But listen carefully. My beloved child, faith is not an emotion. Faith is a relentless, stubborn, gritty choice. It is the deliberate, courageous decision to look directly into the teeth of the storm. Feel your knees knocking together in genuine human terror, and declare through clenched teeth that I am still entirely good. It is choosing to anchor your desperate mind to the solid rock of my unchanging character, even when your feelings are completely submerged under deep, dark water. Every single time you choose to interrupt your own panic and actively recall my promises, you are laying another heavy, indestructible stone in the wall of your internal fortress. This is not a passive waiting game where you simply endure the pain. This is the intense, deliberate construction of your permanent spiritual sanctuary. When the screaming anxiety in your chest tells you that the provision will never come, I want you to consciously stop what you are doing. Take a slow, deep breath and stubbornly recite the history of my faithfulness in your life. Remind your trembling, fragile heart that the exact same hands that shaped the mountains and scattered the stars are the exact same hands holding your uncertain future right now. Relying on my wisdom is a conscious minute-by-minute discipline, a continuous act of choosing surrender that will eventually inevitably bring a beautiful harvest of deep, unexplainable calm. You must come to terms with the fact that you cannot control the massive, violent waves crashing against the wooden planks of your life. You cannot force the dark, ominous clouds to scatter, nor can you command the torrential rain to cease its heavy falling. If you spend all your precious limited energy trying to scream at the storm, to stop you will only lose your voice, exhaust your body, and completely break your weary spirit. But while you have absolutely no authority over the external weather, you hold absolute total authority over where you place your attention. You can absolutely choose who you look at during the chaos. You can focus your wide eyes on the terrifying size of the waves, constantly calculating how quickly they might pull you under into the icy depths. Or you can deliberately fix your steadfast gaze on the one who is walking calmly across the surface of the water, directly towards you. I know exactly how incredibly difficult this conscious choice is when the thunder is literally shaking the ground beneath your feet. It requires every ounce of intentionality and mental fortitude you possess to turn your head away from the very thing that is directly threatening your survival. But this is the exact moment, the precise crucible, where your faith transforms from a fragile, untested theory into an unbreakable, life-saving lifeline. When you wake up in the middle of the dark night, your chest incredibly tight, with a sudden suffocating wave of panic about tomorrow's insurmountable problems, I want you to practice this active trust. Do not lie there silently in the dark, allowing the catastrophic scenarios to play out like a terrifying, unstoppable movie in your mind. Speak my promises aloud into the empty, quiet room. Let the physical sound of your own voice declaring, "My goodness," break the heavy, oppressive silence of your anxiety. As you intentionally and repeatedly practice this mental discipline day after day, something truly miraculous begins to happen within the complex architecture of your mind. The deeply worn neural pathways of panic and fear that you have reflexively traveled down for so many agonizing years will slowly begin to grow over with disuse. Simultaneously, the new, sturdy, beautiful roads of trust and peace will become your mind's completely natural destination. The vicious storm outside your window may continue to rage violently, snapping thick tree branches and rattling the fragile glass. But inside your beautifully fortified mind, there will be a warm, crackling fire of absolute, untouchable security. You are no longer a fragile, dried leaf, being blown aimlessly around by every sudden, bitter gust of bad news. You are becoming a deeply rooted, majestic oak tree, bending gracefully in the harsh wind, but never breaking, because your thick roots are wrapped securely around the solid foundation of my eternal love. Feel the profound, resilient strength that is rising up within your weary bones right now as you fully realize you are not entirely helpless in this fight. You have been given the incredible divine agency to choose your internal reality completely, regardless of your harsh external circumstances. You are actively learning to take your darkest thoughts captive, deliberately choosing stubborn faith when the storm fiercely rages, and building an impenetrable stone fortress of peace within your own soul. This active, intentional, unyielding trust is the exact spiritual weapon that will carry you safely through the darkest, coldest hours of the night. By recognizing that you have the supreme power to direct your focus, you are becoming deeply mentally fortified, completely ready to face whatever tomorrow brings with an unyielding, resilient spirit. You are finally ready to stop staring at the terrifying height of the crashing waves and take the next crucial, life-altering step of entirely redirecting your vision. Now that you are entirely redirecting your vision, you must intimately understand the profound difference between simply glancing away from the dark clouds and deliberately firmly fixing your eyes upon my eternal majesty. For so long you have lived under the agonizing, exhausting illusion that if you simply stared at your problems long enough, if you analyzed every single angle and measured every possible outcome, you could somehow figure out a way to solve them. You wake up in the quiet, fragile hours of the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, you immediately turn your anxious attention to the unpaid bills sitting on the kitchen counter, the frightening medical reports, the fractured relationships that leave your home feeling cold, or the deep, echoing silence of your profound loneliness. You carefully examine every painful, sharp detail of your struggle, turning it over and over in your exhausted, racing mind. But my precious child, I want to gently reveal a crucial spiritual truth that will fundamentally change how you experience this current heavy trial. Obsessing over the exact details of your struggle does not bring you even 1 inch closer to a lasting solution. It only artificially magnifies the problem and drastically shrinks your view of my limitless power. Whatever you give your ultimate undivided attention to quickly becomes the largest, most dominant reality in your life. When you constantly fixate on your deep pain, you are unintentionally bowing down to it. You are in a very real, tragic sense worshiping the problem through your relentless daily worry. And as long as you worship the dark storm, you will remain deeply, helplessly terrified of the howling wind. This is precisely why I must gently but firmly, deeply reinforce the unbreakable core principle we established at the very beginning of this intimate journey together. My peace must always, without exception, come before my miracle. I am trying to permanently break your painful gripping fixation on your temporary circumstances so that I can tenderly lift your heavy, exhausted head and show you the breathtaking scope of my eternal glory. As long as you believe that your internal peace depends entirely on your external situation, changing true, lasting peace will constantly elude you. You will constantly chase a fading horizon that keeps moving further and further away with every step you take. You are desperately waiting for the dark sky to clear and the storm to completely stop so that you can finally exhale. But I am lovingly inviting you to exhale right now, in this very second, while the loud thunder is still violently shaking the wooden floorboards beneath your trembling feet. I want to build a resilient, beautiful faith within your soul that is completely independent of your chaotic external reality. When you courageously redirect your focus away from the devastating immediate crisis and fix your eyes entirely on me, the massive problem does not necessarily disappear in that exact second, but it immediately and permanently loses its crushing, terrifying authority over your weary soul. You begin to clearly understand that the terrifying size of your specific mountain is absolutely nothing compared to the infinite, unfailing strength of the God who created the entire earth beneath it. I want you to vividly picture the brave disciple who stepped out of the relative safety of the wooden boat in the middle of a terrifying, violent, churning sea. For a few miraculous, breathtaking moments, he was actually doing the completely impossible. He was walking directly on top of the deep black water, completely defying the natural laws of the physical world. Why was he able to do this? Because in those first few courageous steps, his wide eyes were locked entirely and completely on my face. He was not looking at the deadly crashing waves, and he was not calculating the incredible, terrifying depth of the sea beneath his trembling feet. His complete, undivided focus was completely on his divine provider, and because his vision was fixed entirely on me, the impossible became his immediate, beautiful reality. But then, the fierce wind loudly howled. The massive, brutal waves crashed aggressively around him, spraying cold, stinging water into his eyes. In a single, fatal moment of human distraction, he shifted his eyes away from my face and looked directly at the violent storm. He looked at the massive problem. He began to quickly, frantically analyze the terrifying, chaotic circumstances surrounding him, and the very moment he magnified the storm, he immediately began to sink. His sudden distraction led to his immediate, terrifying descent into the freezing water. My beloved, precious child, I must tell you the truth. You are sinking right now. Not because your specific problem is too heavy, but because your eyes are locked tightly on the wind and the crashing waves. You are staring intently at the impossible odds, the shrinking bank account, the overwhelming medical diagnosis, and the broken, scattered pieces of your family. And you are letting the loud, chaotic noise of those visible circumstances pull you completely under the dark water. I am reaching out, my strong, unfailing hand to you right now, just as I did for him on that dark night. And I am gently asking you to look back at me. Look at my face. Deliberately shift your eyes from the terrifying temporary problem to your ultimate, eternal provider. When you keep your eyes locked on me, the violent chaos swirling around your fragile life can no longer drag you beneath the surface. To make this profound, life-altering shift, I am calling you to actively practice radical gratitude right here in the very middle of your deepest, darkest trial. I know exactly how entirely unnatural it feels to offer a song of praise when your fragile heart is actively breaking. Your human logic loudly screams that gratitude should only be expressed after the final victory is fully secured and the battle is entirely over. But I am teaching you today that praise is actually the ultimate, most powerful weapon against your paralyzing fear. When you make the incredibly difficult choice to speak words of thanksgiving while you are still trapped in the dark, frightening valley, you are actively dismantling the heavy, suffocating chains of anxiety that have tightly bound you for so long. You absolutely do not have to be thankful for the agonizing pain, the tragic loss, or the terrifying, looming uncertainty. I am never asking you to pretend that the devastating storm is somehow beautiful. I am simply asking you to be deeply, profoundly thankful that I am actively, faithfully walking with you through the very center of it. I am asking you to deliberately praise me for the absolute, undeniable certainty that I will never leave you, that I will never forsake you, and that I am actively, brilliantly working all of these broken pieces together for your ultimate glorious good. As you begin to deliberately magnify my holy name instead of your temporary hardship, you will feel a palpable immediate shift in the entire atmosphere of your weary heart. The suffocating defensive survival mode you have been trapped in for so many agonizing months will finally begin to melt away, completely losing its grip on your mind. You will no longer be cowering helplessly in the dark corner of your life, simply hoping to miraculously survive the next crushing wave. Instead, you will rise up into an offensive, powerful, and deeply beautiful posture of unwavering worship. You will stand firmly and securely on the deck of your fragile, storm-tossed boat, looking directly into the darkest part of the terrifying sky, and you will declare with unwavering, joyous expectation that my goodness is already on its way. You will completely realize that the dark storm is simply the magnificent temporary stage I am using to permanently display my glorious, redemptive power in your beautiful life. By choosing to praise me in the darkness, you are powerfully severing the heavy roots of your deepest anxieties, preparing your soul for the incredible, transformative work that requires you to gently let go of even more. You must let go of the very things you have relied upon for survival. You have learned to redirect your vision, and you are beginning to praise me in the darkness. But true lasting transformation requires more than just a change in your perspective. It requires a profound, intentional process of internal shedding. I am not simply trying to change how you look at the storm. I am actively changing who you are while you stand inside it. To build the beautiful, resilient faith I have promised you, we must carefully remove the old, fragile foundations you have spent your entire life constructing. This means we must address your deeply ingrained pride, your fierce self-reliance, and the hidden idols of worldly security you have secretly trusted to keep you safe. For so many years, you have quietly believed that a full bank account, a flawless reputation, or a perfectly predictable daily routine were the true sources of your peace. You falsely believed that accumulating resources or maintaining control over daily circumstances could insulate you from the unpredictable storms of life. You built defensive walls out of human logic and personal control, fiercely guarding your heart from any vulnerability. But those heavily fortified walls are actually keeping my grace out. They have become a suffocating prison rather than a safe sanctuary. I am asking you to embrace the uncomfortable but exquisitely beautiful process of letting those heavy, exhausting defenses crumble to the ground. I know that this spiritual surgery feels incredibly frightening. When I begin to dismantle your self-reliance, every natural instinct within you screams in protest. You feel exposed, entirely vulnerable, and painfully unprotected. The coping mechanisms you have relied upon to survive past betrayals, sudden rejections, and unexpected losses are deeply rooted in your mind. You have leaned on them for so long that you mistakenly believe they are part of your actual skeleton. When I ask you to lay them down, it feels exactly like I am taking away your only shield in the middle of a fierce battlefield. But my precious child, you must understand that I am not removing your armor to leave you defenseless. I am removing it because it is far too heavy for you to carry, and it is actively blocking you from wearing the impenetrable armor of my presence. You are holding on to your pride and your illusion of control with such a desperately tight grip, terrified that if you let go, you will lose your very identity. But the identity you are fighting so fiercely to protect is merely a temporary fragile shell. The pain you are experiencing right now, as circumstances stretch you beyond your limits, is simply the breaking of that shell, so the true, magnificent life I designed for you can finally emerge. Picture a beautiful, sweeping vineyard meticulously cared for by a master gardener. Looking at the green vines stretching across the hills, you see the breathtaking beauty of the harvest. You see the heavy, vibrant grapes that will soon be gathered. But you must remember that long before those branches produce their heavy, sweet fruit, They had to endure the sharp, uncompromising cut of the pruning shears. I am the true vine, and you are my beloved branch. If a branch is left entirely to itself, it will grow wildly in every direction. It will produce countless leaves stretching out toward the sun, looking incredibly healthy and vibrant to the untrained human eye. But beneath all those impressive leaves, it will produce very little actual fruit, because its vital energy is completely wasted on sustaining dead wood and useless distracting shoots. My child, your life has been filled with so many distracting shoots. You have poured your precious, limited energy into seeking the approval of others, obsessing over temporary successes, and trying to force outcomes that I never intended for you. You have looked incredibly busy, entirely self-sufficient, and outwardly successful, constantly moving from one exhausting task to the next. But your spirit has been quietly starving for the deep, lasting fruit of genuine peace, authentic connection, and unending joy. Because I love you with an overwhelming, consuming passion, I refuse to let you remain barren under a canopy of useless leaves. So I take the shears and I begin to cut. I cut away the dead relationships that are quietly draining your soul. I sever the toxic dependencies you have on worldly validation. I trim back the chaotic, exhausting schedules you have created to avoid sitting quietly in my presence. And yes, this cutting hurts. I do not minimize the profound ache of this internal shedding. The heavy, agonizing sorrow you feel right now is not the pain of my punishment. It is simply the painful friction of your old self, fiercely resisting the beautiful new life I am actively trying to give you. Your flesh constantly craves comfort, immediate resolution, and absolute predictability. It wants the easiest path, the path of least resistance, where no faith is required, and no shadows ever fall. It fights bitterly against the shears, crying out that the cutting is terribly unfair, and that you are losing everything that actually matters. It tries to convince you that this loss is permanent. But your spirit, the deepest part of you, that recognizes, my voice knows that this painful pruning is the only way to true freedom. You are feeling the intense burning friction between who you used to be and who I am brilliantly calling you to become. In the middle of this uncomfortable spiritual surgery, I need you to completely trust the hands that hold the shears. I am not a reckless gardener, randomly hacking away at your life in anger or frustration. Every single cut I make is executed with absolute divine precision and profound, overwhelming love. I see the exact condition of your weary soul. I know precisely which branches are diseased with bitterness, which shoots are tangled in anxiety, and which heavy limbs of pride are threatening to bring the entire tree crashing down. I never slip. I never cut too deep. I never remove a single thing from your life, unless it is absolutely necessary to heal you from the inside out and prepare you for the magnificent harvest. When I take away a source of comfort or close a door you desperately wanted to walk through, I am not trying to harm you. I am protecting you from settling for a shallow imitation of the abundant life I have reserved for you. I am carefully reshaping your heart so that it can hold the massive weight of the blessings that are coming. I am clearing out the crowded, noisy rooms of your soul so that I can finally move in and fill those quiet, empty spaces with my radiant, unfailing peace. I am gently calling you to stop fighting the shears. The more fiercely you resist this necessary shedding, the more agonizing the friction becomes. When you stubbornly cling to the dead branches, I am trying to remove you, only prolong your own exhaustion and delay your own healing. The absolute wisest choice you can make today, in the very middle of your confusion and pain, is to completely yield to my hands. Yielding does not mean you will not feel the sting of the cut, but it means you will no longer suffer the agonizing torment of fighting against your own Creator. It is the quiet, courageous decision to say, Lord, this hurts deeply, but I trust your vision for my life more than I trust my own comfort. It is the deliberate surrender of your pride, recognizing that your way has only led to deep, exhausting spiritual burnout, while my way leads to an eternal overflowing and vibrant life. Allow the tense muscles in your jaw to relax. Let the rigid posture of your constant defensiveness soften into gentle surrender. Give yourself the profound permission to be unfinished, to be entirely a work in progress, and to rest securely in the hands of the one who never leaves a masterpiece incomplete. As you slowly, bravely open your tightly clenched hands and allow me to take away the heavy idols of your self-reliance, a beautiful, profound shift will begin to occur within your weary soul. The sharp initial sting of the pruning will slowly begin to fade, beautifully replaced by a deep, undeniable sense of absolute trust in my divine intentions. You will start to look at the empty spaces in your life not as devastating losses, but as brilliantly cleared ground, perfectly prepared for new, miraculous growth. You will finally accept that the temporary pain of letting go is infinitely worth the eternal weight of glory I am producing within you. The hot, quiet tears of surrender you shed today are actively watering the beautiful, heavy fruit you will joyfully and abundantly bear tomorrow. By embracing the painful beauty of this divine pruning process, you are deliberately removing the final barriers to my grace. You are completely emptying your hands of your own flawed blueprints, perfectly positioning your newly cleared heart to experience the breathtaking arrival of the unexplainable rest you have so desperately sought. And as you finally open your tightly clenched hands and allow the heavy idols of your self-reliance to fall away, you will begin to physically and spiritually feel it. It does not announce itself with a loud crash of thunder or a sudden parting of the dark clouds. Instead, it arrives quietly, gently, like a warm dawn breaking over a frozen landscape. This is the breathtaking arrival of the unexplainable inner peace I have promised you. Pause and recognize the profound, miraculous shift taking place within your weary spirit. Look closely at your current reality. The storm is still violently raging around you. The fierce winds of uncertainty are still blowing, and the massive waves of your pressing circumstances are still crashing aggressively against your fragile boat. The bank account has not yet multiplied. The medical report has not been reversed, and the fractured relationship remains painfully silent. Yet miraculously, your heart is no longer racing in terror. You are no longer scrambling frantically across the deck, desperately trying to bail out the deep water with your exhausted hands. I deeply validate and celebrate this monumental progress with you. My beloved child, you have reached a breathtaking milestone in your spiritual journey, discovering the liberating truth that external circumstances no longer dictate your internal climate. I want you to vividly understand that this profound peace is not merely the temporary absence of conflict. It is the overwhelming, tangible presence of my divine authority dwelling perfectly within you. There is a magnificent, beautiful paradox in experiencing this level of supernatural calm. It is the miraculous ability to fall into a deep, restorative sleep in the very middle of a chaotic, threatening sea. Remember the story of my son resting comfortably on a small cushion in a fragile fishing boat while a deadly squall threatened to tear the vessel apart. The disciples were frantic, convinced their lives were over, screaming for an immediate rescue. But he slept. He slept not because he was ignorant of the danger, but because he possessed complete, absolute authority over it. I am gifting you that exact same rest today. I am lovingly inviting you to lay your heavy head down on the soft cushion of my unshakable sovereignty. When you look at your unresolved situation through the limited lens of human logic, this calm makes absolutely no sense. But you are no longer relying on fragile, incomplete calculations. You are now leaning the entire weight of your life against my infinite wisdom, and that changes your entire reality. This is precisely what it means to possess the peace that surpasses all human understanding. It deliberately defies rational explanation, anchoring you with the absolute certainty that because I am fully in control, you are completely and eternally safe. I want you to physically feel this profound shift right now. For months, perhaps even years, your fragile body has been trapped in a grueling state of constant defense. Your heart has raced in panic at the sudden ring of a telephone, anticipating bad news. Your stomach has tightened with every unexpected bill, every silent stare from a loved one, and every painful reminder of your perceived failures. But right now, in this sacred moment, notice how your breathing is finally slowing down into a steady, relaxed rhythm. Feel the tight, painful knot of anxiety in your chest completely dissolving. The aching tension you have carried in your shoulders, the physical weight of trying to play the author of your own story, is melting away. Your mind, once a deafening battlefield of worst-case scenarios and frantic backup plans, is beautifully clearing. The loud, demanding voices of fear and doubt have been reduced to a quiet whisper, drowned out by the warm, constant reassurance of my presence. You are finally experiencing the profound rest that comes when a weary child stops trying to protect themselves and simply allows their loving father to carry them. You are not giving up. You are yielding. You are not losing the battle. You are simply allowing me to step forward and fight it flawlessly on your behalf. As you sit here with me in this unhurried space, I want you to deeply understand what the arrival of this unexplainable peace truly signifies. We have spoken many times about the unbreakable foundational truth that must govern your journey. My peace must always come before my miracle. Look at this unshakable calm resting in your soul right now, and recognize it for what it actually is. This peace is not a temporary distraction from your pain, nor is it a false sense of hope. It is the undeniable, beautiful evidence that your miracle is already in motion. When I send my supernatural peace into your heart, while the dark storm is still furiously raging, it is my personal guarantee that I am actively working in the unseen realm to bring about your absolute deliverance. You no longer have to frantically search the horizon for a tiny sign that I am coming to rescue you. The unshakable stillness inside your own chest is the sign. Because you have prioritized the healing of your heart over the immediate changing of your circumstances, the massive unseen wheels of my divine provision are already beautifully turning in your favor. This moment right now feels like a long, deep cleansing breath for your weary soul. Does it not? This part of our journey is no longer about striving, fighting, or learning difficult lessons. The painful, necessary work of the pruning shears is finished for this season. We are transitioning beautifully from the intense classroom of instruction into a sacred space of shared quiet intimacy. Imagine sitting with me on a quiet porch, watching the rain fall steadily from the dark clouds, yet feeling completely dry, warm, and secure. We do not need to speak constantly. You do not need to fill the air with desperate bargaining prayers. The silence between us is no longer a source of agonizing anxiety. It has become a comfortable, sacred sanctuary. I want you to simply soak in this sweet intimacy. Close your eyes and lean your head against my chest, listening to the unchanging rhythm of my unfailing love for you. You are entirely understood here. You are completely safe here. You do not have to perform. You do not have to pretend to be strong. And you do not have to hold the fragile pieces of your life together anymore. I am holding them for you. You spent so much time begging me for a sudden change in your circumstances, falsely believing that an external rescue was the only miracle that could save you. But as you rest deeply in this beautiful calm, I want you to realize a breathtaking truth possessing. My peace is actually the greatest miracle of all. An external miracle only changes your temporary situation for a passing moment. But this internal peace permanently changes exactly who you are. It fundamentally alters how you will face every single tomorrow. Because you have successfully learned to find your ultimate rest in me, while the dark waves are still dangerously high, you will never again be held hostage by the unpredictable storms of this broken world. When future challenges arise, and they inevitably will, you will not revert back to your old exhausting patterns of blinding panic and intense self-reliance. You will simply smile, take a deep breath, and immediately retreat into this impenetrable fortress of trust we have built together. You have become spiritually resilient, emotionally anchored, and beautifully free. This unexplainable inner peace is your new, magnificent baseline. It is the solid, indestructible rock upon which the rest of your transformed life will be beautifully constructed. You have passed safely through the terrifying fire of uncertainty, and instead of being consumed by the hot flames, you have emerged, beautifully refined. You have successfully navigated the agonizing waiting season, not by obsessively watching the clock, but by bravely choosing to seek my face. And now, as a reward for your stubborn faith, I have saturated your mind with a tranquility that the world can neither give nor take away. As you sit in this deep, perfect rest, unbothered by the loud wind outside, your faith has reached a beautiful maturity. You are finally ready to stop worrying entirely about the future, because you are ready to look back at the incredible journey we have already taken together. As you bask in this quiet confidence, it is time to gently turn your head and look at the path behind you, preparing your heart to truly see how faithfully I have been orchestrating every single detail of your life long before this current storm ever began. Look carefully at the long, winding road that has brought you to this exact moment. When you were frantically running forward, desperately trying to survive each day, your eyes were fixed only on the obstacles immediately in front of you. You did not have the luxury nor the peace to pause and examine the intricate tapestry I was weaving behind you. But now, from this beautiful place of unexplainable rest, you finally have the clarity to look back. I want you to walk with me through the halls of your own history. I want to pull back the heavy curtain of human logic and show you the magnificent truth of my constant invisible hand in your life. You have a habit, my child, of severely underestimating my presence in your past. When something unexpected worked out perfectly in your favor, you smiled and called it a fortunate coincidence. When a massive disaster was narrowly averted at the last second, you breathed a heavy sigh of relief and credited it to a lucky break. You have assigned the brilliant, deliberate rescue missions of your Creator to random chance. But I tell you today, there has never been a single coincidence in the entire span of your life. Think about the specific moments when you felt entirely trapped, absolutely certain that you had reached the end of your resources. Remember that season years ago when the financial pressure was just as suffocating as it is right now, when you wept into your pillow because you had no idea how you were going to provide for tomorrow. Yet somehow the exact amount you needed arrived at the exact right moment. A stranger showed unexpected generosity, a forgotten opportunity suddenly materialized, or a deadline was miraculously extended. You called it a narrow escape, but it was not an escape at all. It was a deliberate, perfectly timed delivery from my hand. I allowed the pressure to build, only to the precise moment when my provision would shine, the brightest, teaching you that I am never early, but I am absolutely never late. I was orchestrating the hearts of people you had not even met, aligning conversations and shifting circumstances outside of your view, just to ensure you were completely cared for. Consider the painful doors that were slammed shut in your face, the rejections that left you feeling entirely defeated and deeply unworthy. You desperately wanted a specific job, a certain relationship, or a particular opportunity, and when it fell through, you cried out to me, asking why I had abandoned you. You thought my silence was a cruel denial. But look back at those closed doors from where you are sitting today. You can now clearly see that if I had given you what you so desperately begged for, it would have ultimately destroyed you. The relationship you thought would bring you lifelong joy would have brought you years of agonizing heartbreak. The opportunity you thought was your greatest breakthrough would have distracted you from the true calling I had prepared for you. I was not ignoring your tears. I was enduring your temporary misunderstanding of my goodness in order to secure your permanent protection. Every negative response I have ever spoken over your life was simply a heavy shield blocking a deadly arrow you never even saw coming. It is incredibly easy for your human mind to suffer from spiritual amnesia when a new storm arrives. The moment the wind begins to howl today, you instantly forget the massive seas I parted for you yesterday. This is exactly why throughout the history of my people, I have constantly commanded them to deliberately remember my past faithfulness. I told them to build altars of heavy stones, to write down the stories of their miraculous deliveries, and to recite them loudly to their children. I did not demand this, because my ego requires constant praise. I commanded them to remember, because I knew that remembering my flawless track record is the only fuel that can sustain your present courage. Your faith for tomorrow is built entirely upon the undeniable evidence of my faithfulness yesterday. I want you to mentally gather the heavy stones of your own history right now. I want you to build an altar in your mind, stacking every answered prayer, every unseen protection, and every tear I have gently wiped from your face. When you stack those stones, look at the magnificent monument they create. It is a monument of absolute unwavering reliability. I have a flawless track record in your life, my precious child. Have I ever completely abandoned you to the darkness? Have I ever let you drown when the water reached your neck? You have faced intense pain. Yes, you have endured deep, agonizing grief, and you have walked through valleys so dark you could not see your own hands. But you have survived 100% of your worst days, and you did not survive them because you were somehow strong enough to fight the darkness alone. You survived because my invisible hand was constantly resting firmly against your back, gently pushing you forward when your legs refused to take another step. You survived because my wisdom was always working brilliantly behind the scenes, far beyond the narrow limits of your human comprehension, turning the ashes of your deepest tragedies into the beautiful foundation of your future. Why would I carry you across 1,000 miles of scorching, dangerous desert, providing water from dry rocks and manna from the empty sky, only to suddenly abandon you right at the edge of your promised land? The enemy wants you to look at your current crisis and believe that this time it is entirely different. He wants you to think that this specific mountain is finally too tall for me to move, or that this particular storm is the one where I finally lose my grip on you. But you must firmly reject that terrifying, exhausting lie. The God who intimately knew exactly how to sustain you 5 years ago has not suddenly lost his power, his wisdom, or his deep, consuming love for you today. I am the exact same God. I do not change like the shifting shadows, and I do not grow weary when the battles become long. If I was fiercely faithful to you when you were still running from me, how much more intensely will I protect you now that you are resting securely in my arms? As you connect these beautiful, intricate dots of my grace across the timeline of your life, let a profound, overwhelming sense of gratitude completely wash over your weary soul. Look at how beautifully, how carefully, and how intentionally you have been loved. You are not a random, insignificant wanderer struggling to survive in a cold, chaotic universe. You are the deeply cherished masterpiece of the Creator, constantly surrounded by my protective interventions. Every time you stumbled, my hand was there to catch you. Every time you lost your way, my gentle whisper was there to guide you back to the path. Even in the seasons when your faith was completely shattered, when you could not bring yourself to whisper a single prayer, my faithfulness to you remained completely unbroken. I was holding you tightly, even when you had entirely let go of me. Let this retrospective journey completely dismantle any lingering fragile doubts you might still be harboring about my ability to handle your current crisis. The massive problem standing in front of you today is absolutely nothing compared to the limitless power I have already demonstrated in your past. You do not need to figure out the exact mechanics of your upcoming rescue. You do not need to understand how I am going to part this particular sea. You only need to look back and remember that I am the God who parts seas. That is my nature, that is my promise. And that is my unbreakable commitment to you. Your history is not a series of lucky accidents. It is the undeniable, beautifully written autobiography of my unending grace. Feel the last heavy remnants of your anxiety finally melting away entirely, replaced by a rock-solid, unshakable conviction. You now deeply, intimately know that the God who flawlessly sustained you yesterday is fully, effortlessly capable of delivering you today and fiercely protecting you tomorrow. You are resting on a foundation of proven historical truth, looking at the approaching waves, not with trembling fear, but with the quiet, powerful confidence of a child who knows their father has never, ever lost a battle. Armed with this profound certainty, You are finally prepared to take the ultimate, most beautiful step of your spiritual journey, bringing every remaining desire to the altar and completely letting go. Here we are, my child, standing together before the most sacred altar of your own heart. You have journeyed through the painful valleys of your exhaustion. You have allowed my gentle hands to prune away the heavy, dead branches of your self-reliance, and you have looked back at the beautiful tapestry of my historical faithfulness to you. You have learned to find a quiet, unexplainable rest while the storm continues to violently rage outside your window. But there is one final, incredibly crucial step we must take together to complete this magnificent transformation. I am leading you gently but powerfully to the very tipping point of absolute unconditional surrender. Look closely at your tightly clenched hands right now. Even after all the progress we have made, even after all the defensive walls you have bravely allowed to fall, there is still one specific outcome you are fiercely holding on to. You know exactly what it is. It is the one specific prayer you have been desperately demanding I answer in your exact way, on your exact timeline. It is the deeply guarded condition you have secretly attached to your faith. You have beautifully surrendered many things to me, but you have kept this one final reservation carefully tucked away in the deepest pocket of your heart. You have essentially whispered that you will trust me with everything else, but I must fix this one specific situation exactly as you planned it. You believe that if this particular desire is not met precisely, your life will be permanently ruined. You have tied your ultimate joy entirely to this single earthly expectation. But my precious child, as long as you are clinging desperately to a specific human outcome, you are still subtly trying to retain control. You are still relying on your own limited wisdom to dictate what is ultimately best for your future. I am not condemning you for this deep desire. I understand how incredibly much it means to you. I see the raw, vulnerable tears you have shed over it. But I love you far too much to let you remain chained to the agonizing anxiety of trying to force my hand. I am gently asking you today to finally completely release it. I am calling you into the absolute purest form of faith that a human heart can possibly experience. This is the breathtaking, terrifying, and profoundly beautiful act of praying for my perfect will to be done, even if it completely contradicts your most desperate, deeply held desires. To reach the ultimate freedom I have promised you, you must step entirely out of the boat of your own expectations. You can no longer keep one foot securely resting on the wooden planks of your backup plans while trying to place the other foot on the miraculous water with me. You must step out entirely. You must yield completely, without any hidden conditions or safety nets, to my sovereign authority. This level of trust requires an immense, staggering amount of bravery. It is the most courageous thing you will ever do. Your flesh is screaming that letting go of this final demand means giving up entirely. Your logic warns you that if you do not fiercely protect this one outcome, you will be left completely empty-handed and deeply disappointed. But I want to deeply validate your courage right now. I see the intense trembling struggle within your soul. I know exactly how much it cost you to look at the massive, terrifying waves, look at the deepest desire of your heart, and then deliberately choose to hand the pen back to me so I can write the ending my way. I am celebrating this incredibly brave decision with you, my beloved. When you honestly say that, even if I never give you the specific miracle you are asking for, you will still fiercely trust my goodness, you strip the enemy of his final weapon. I must remind you once again of the unbreakable foundational truth that has guided every single step of this long journey. My peace must always come before my miracle. This act of profound, unconditional surrender is the final, magnificent key required to unlock that ultimate permanent peace within your soul. As long as you were secretly demanding a specific result, your peace was still incredibly fragile, held hostage by the unpredictable shifting of your external circumstances. You were still subtly bracing yourself for the possibility of disappointment. But when you completely release the outcome into my capable hands, disappointment loses its suffocating power over you. You can no longer be devastated by the future, because you have completely detached your joy from earthly results and firmly attached it to my eternal, unchanging character. You are finally moving from the exhausting position of telling me what must be done to the beautifully restful position of trusting whatever I choose to do. I want you to vividly picture the altar in your mind. Take that heavy, deeply cherished desire, that relationship you desperately want, restore that financial breakthrough you are waiting for, that specific healing you have begged to see, and walk slowly toward the altar. Do not rush this sacred moment. Feel the intense emotional weight of what you are carrying. Notice how tightly your fingers are wrapped around it, your knuckles white from holding on to it for so many agonizing years. Now take a deep, trembling breath and deliberately open your hands. Lay it down. Leave it there on the stone, entirely releasing your ownership of it. Step back and lift your empty, weary hands toward me in absolute total surrender. You do not need to manage it anymore. You do not need to obsess over it, protect it, or desperately try to breathe life into it. It is officially entirely out of your hands and safely secured in mine. In this breathtaking moment of absolute yielding, true permanent life transformation finally occurs. Feel the rising intensity of this profound spiritual breakthrough. It is like standing at the very edge of a massive sweeping cliff, feeling the fierce wind pushing against your chest, and finally choosing to fall forward, knowing with absolute certainty that the invisible, powerful currents of my grace will catch you and carry you higher than you ever could have climbed on your own. You are stepping completely onto the water with me. There is no solid ground left beneath your feet, no human logic left to lean on, and no backup plan left to catch you. There is only me. I am your entire reality now. As you fully embrace this total, unconditional surrender, an immense, sweeping sense of freedom is rushing into your completely emptied heart. The crushing weight of self-reliance, the heavy burden you have dragged behind you for your entire adult life, is finally lifted from your exhausted shoulders. You no longer have to be the savior of your own story. You no longer have to constantly calculate the odds of your survival or frantically worry about how the complex pieces of tomorrow will possibly fit together. You have completely resigned from the exhausting job of playing God, and you have finally accepted the beautiful, simple, deeply restful role of being my beloved child. Breathe in this extraordinary, limitless freedom. Notice how the air feels different in your lungs. The tension that lived in your jaw and chest for years has completely vanished. You are entirely empty of your own plans, which means you are now perfectly, completely ready to be filled with my magnificent provision. You have successfully passed through the narrow, difficult gate of total surrender, and you are now standing in the wide, brilliantly illuminated fields of my limitless grace. The dark, terrifying storm outside has completely lost its ability to cause you fear, because you no longer care where the wind blows your fragile boat. You know that wherever the wind ultimately takes you, I will be standing right there, waiting for you. This is the profound, beautiful tipping point. You have crossed the sacred threshold from a life driven by anxious human effort into a life entirely carried by divine trust. You have stopped demanding the miracle, and in doing so, you have finally made your heart entirely ready to receive it. As the warm, brilliant light of this new, transformed reality begins to gently wash over your completely surrendered spirit, you will begin to see the incredible, visible evidence of the beautiful work I have been doing inside you all along. You are finally ready to open your eyes and witness the breathtaking dawn of your entirely transformed life. Open your eyes now, my beautiful child, and look carefully at the person standing securely in the warm, brilliant light of this breathtaking dawn. I want you to marvel at the magnificent internal metamorphosis that has taken place within your own soul. Look closely at the reflection of your spirit today and realize that you are no longer the deeply frightened, utterly exhausted soul who began this difficult journey with me. Think back to those early days when you were frantically trying to hold the fragile pieces of your life together, when your hands trembled with anxiety and your mind raced with 1,000 terrifying worst-case scenarios. You were a prisoner to your own desperate need for control. But look at you now. You have emerged from the intense heat of the waiting season as someone entirely new. You are spiritually mature, profoundly resilient, and remarkably wise. The heavy circles of spiritual fatigue have vanished, replaced by a radiant, unshakable confidence in my unfailing love. Consider the profound difference in how your renewed mind now beautifully processes the daily hardships of this unpredictable world. In the past, whenever a sudden challenge arose or a minor setback threatened your carefully constructed plans, your immediate reaction was blinding panic. You would instantly feel the suffocating grip of anxiety, and you would desperately sprint right back to the heavy wheel of your own control. But today, the story is entirely different. When the wind suddenly shifts or unexpected news arrives, you do not shatter. You respond with a quiet, powerful grace rather than chaotic panic. You simply take a deep, steadying breath, smile with absolute assurance, and immediately hand the complication over to my perfectly capable hands. The exhausting armor of your human defensiveness has been permanently traded for the light, impenetrable shield of divine trust. This beautiful reality of your internal transformation is exactly what it means to become a new creation in me. The old fearful self has completely passed away, and behold, all things have become miraculously new. You no longer walk according to the loud, demanding dictates of your flesh. You walk in step with my spirit, guided by an internal compass that always points toward eternal hope. You are no longer defined by your deep wounds, your past failures, or the terrifying circumstances that once threatened to pull you under. Your entire identity is now firmly anchored in my eternal truth. I want you to feel a deep, overwhelming sense of awe at the incredible work you have allowed me to do inside your heart. You did not run away when the pruning shears caused you pain. You did not abandon your faith when the agonizing silence stretched on for months. You stayed in the difficult, necessary fire, and because you yielded completely to my refining hands, the impurities of your pride and fear have been burned away. You are shining with the pure gold of a tested and proven faith, fully equipped to navigate whatever the future may hold with an elegant, unwavering peace. I allowed you to endure that dark, agonizing season, specifically to build this magnificent internal fortitude. You had to experience the intense struggle because the waiting was entirely necessary to build a vessel strong enough to carry the massive blessing that is now arriving. If I had rushed the process, if I had simply handed you the miracle the very first time you begged for a sudden rescue, your fragile hands would have dropped it. The sheer weight of the provision would have shattered your spiritually immature heart, and you would have inevitably begun to worship the gift instead of remaining intimately connected to the giver. But today, your hands are completely open, completely empty of your own flawed blueprints, and beautifully steady. You have proven that you cherish my presence far more than you crave my provision, making you the perfect, secure recipient of the incredible abundance I prepared for you. And now, because your internal climate has been perfectly and permanently anchored in my peace, the external circumstances of your life are finally beginning to beautifully shift in your favor. The long, bitter winter of your waiting is officially over, and the first vibrant green shoots of your promised spring are breaking through the thawing ground. You are beginning to see the incredible visible evidence of my flawless timing unfolding directly in front of your eyes. The heavy, seemingly immovable obstacles that stood directly in your path for years are suddenly quietly stepping aside. The harsh, cold winds of opposition are dying down, beautifully, replaced by the gentle guiding breeze of my divine favor. You can feel a palpable, undeniable shift in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your home, your family, and your future. I am slowly, deliberately unveiling the approaching miracle you have so desperately sought, and I want you to pay very close attention to how it is arriving. Look closely at the horizon of your life. The breakthrough is stepping into the light. But notice how it looks entirely different from the original limited picture you frantically painted in your mind. You asked me for a simple temporary escape from your crushing financial pressure. but I am orchestrating a deeply fulfilling season of abundant, overflowing provision that will permanently change the trajectory of your family. You begged me to somehow patch together the fragile pieces of a shattered relationship, but I am doing something far more magnificent. I am entirely resurrecting it, breathing unconditional love into spaces that were completely dead. You wanted a quick exit from your pain, but I am giving you a permanent entrance into a life of absolute purpose. Notice how this beautiful resolution completely exceeds your original imagination. My perfect timing is bringing the exact deliverance you needed, but in a breathtaking way that showcases my limitless power and my intimate, careful attention to the deepest desires of your heart. I am the God who does exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ever ask or think. And I am proving that magnificent truth to you in this very moment. I intentionally allowed the situation to become entirely impossible by human standards. I allowed the odds to stack completely against you, so that when this magnificent rescue arrived, you would know without a single shadow of a doubt that it came exclusively from my loving hand. You will never have to wonder if your own cleverness saved you, because you know intimately that your own strength had utterly failed. A surging, overwhelming wave of joyful anticipation is rising within your spirit right now, washing away the final lingering traces of your past sorrows. This is the sweet reward for those who wait on the Lord. Your strength has been completely renewed, and you are finally ready to mount up with wings like eagles, soaring high above the very storms that used to paralyze you with terror. You can feel the heavy chains of your previous anxiety completely dissolving into dust. You are experiencing a deep, profound vindication, a beautiful, life-altering realization that your stubborn, tear-soaked faith was never in vain. The world may have looked at your quiet trust and called you foolish for not panicking. The loud, cynical voices around you may have told you to abandon your hope and simply accept defeat. But as you stand in the glorious light of this new dawn, you realize with absolute certainty that your unwavering trust in my sovereign plan was indeed the wisest, safest, and most deeply rewarding choice you could have ever made. You are looking at the magnificent dawn of your completely transformed life, and it is more beautiful than anything you could have ever planned for yourself. The exhausting burden of trying to play the author of your own story is gone forever. You are entirely free, beautifully renewed, and permanently anchored in a love that will never, ever let you go. The incredible work of preparation is finished. Your heart is perfectly aligned with my will, and the beautiful stage is completely set. As the golden light of this miraculous new day washes over your face, the heavy clouds are finally breaking apart, and the full, undeniable reality of my promised provision is stepping directly onto the path right in front of you. Look closely at the brilliant light pouring through those scattered clouds. My beautiful child, the long, agonizing night has finally ended, and the breathtaking reality of your promised miracle is standing right in front of you. I want you to take a deep, trembling breath and fully open your eyes to witness the exact moment the storm completely breaks. The violent winds that once threatened to capsize your fragile boat have been silenced by a single whisper from my lips, replaced by a gentle, warm breeze that carries the undeniable scent of new life. The massive, terrifying waves have dissolved into a sea of absolute glass, reflecting the golden dawn of my perfect provision. Do you see it now? Do you see how flawlessly I have orchestrated every single detail of your rescue? I have opened the heavy iron doors that human hands swore would remain locked forever. I have poured out an overflowing, abundant measure of grace over the very places where you once thought only dust and ashes remained. This is not a partial victory, and it is not a temporary relief. This is the complete, majestic fulfillment of the promise I placed deep within your weary heart so long ago. Feel the overwhelming, magnificent surge of pure, unadulterated joy rushing through your entire body right now. For so many months, the tears that stained your face were heavy with grief, exhaustion, and desperate pleading. But today, the tears slipping down your cheeks are tears of absolute awe and profound vindication. I am tenderly wiping away the very last remnants of your sorrow and replacing them permanently with a triumphant, unshakable confidence in my unending love. I want you to let out a long, joyous laugh. Allow the radiant warmth of this divine fulfillment to soak completely into your weary bones. Your stubborn, tear-soaked faith was never in vain. When the world told you to give up, when your own logic screamed that it was mathematically impossible, you chose to fiercely hold on to the hem of my garment. You waited for me in the freezing dark. And now, I am honoring that beautiful, gritty trust by flooding your reality with a light so brilliant it completely erases the shadows of your past. I am celebrating this victorious transformation with you, my beloved. Look at how beautifully you are receiving this blessing. Because you willingly allowed me to perform the difficult, painful surgery on your soul, because you courageously let go of your fierce self-reliance, you are now able to hold this massive miracle with open, steady hands. Remember the foundational truth we established at the very beginning of this journey. My peace must always come before my miracle. You successfully sought my face before you sought my hand. You found a way to rest securely in my love while the storm was still violently raging. And because you found that ultimate, unexplainable internal peace, first the external miracle has now naturally, effortlessly followed. You are not worshiping the provision. You are standing in breathless wonder of the provider. The blessing is not crushing you under its immense weight, because I took the necessary time to build a spiritual foundation within you that is deep enough and strong enough to sustain it. This is the magnificent climax of your journey, the sacred moment where your deep relief effortlessly transitions into profound, reverent worship. I invite you to fall to your knees, not in desperate fear anymore, but in overwhelming, humble gratitude. Lift your empty-heeled hands toward heaven, and let a song of pure praise rise from the very depths of your renewed spirit. Acknowledge with every beat of your restored heart that I am the sole masterful author of your rescue. No human intellect engineered this breakthrough. No earthly bank account purchased this freedom. No careful calculation of your own mind produced this beautiful resolution. It was entirely, beautifully, and exclusively orchestrated by the sovereign hand of the God who loves you with an everlasting, consuming passion. As you magnify my name, you are completely sealing the victory. Your worship is the beautiful ribbon tied around this season of transformation, declaring to the entire spiritual realm that your faith has been tested in the absolute hottest fires and has emerged as pure, unbreakable gold. As you rise from this sacred altar of praise, completely healed and entirely whole, I am issuing a powerful, loving invitation to you. This miracle is not the end of our story. It is simply the beautiful, radiant beginning of the next magnificent chapter. I am urging you with all the love in my heart never to return to the exhausting, suffocating chains of your own self-reliance. Do not walk out of this glorious light and voluntarily pick up the heavy yoke of anxiety ever again. You have tasted the exquisite freedom of complete surrender. You have seen with your own eyes what happens when you completely step out of the driver's seat and allow my infinite wisdom to navigate the dark roads of your life. Stay closely tethered to me. Walk with me in the cool of the morning. Talk with me in the quiet of the evening. And continue to bring every single one of your cares to my feet, long before they have the chance to become heavy burdens on your shoulders. The path forward is bright. My child, there will undoubtedly be other challenges in the years to come, for you still live in a broken, imperfect world where shadows occasionally fall. But you will never again face a single storm the way you used to. You are no longer the frightened, isolated orphan, desperately trying to survive on your own limited strength, constantly looking over your shoulder in fear. You are a spiritually transformed, emotionally anchored, fiercely protected child of the Most High King. You carry within your chest a peace that the world can never understand, a light that the darkness can never extinguish, and a resilience that the enemy can never break. You have been permanently equipped with the profound, hard-won wisdom that trusting me is always, without exception, the absolute wisest choice you can possibly make. You know now that even when my hand is temporarily hidden, my heart is always actively working for your ultimate good. So breathe, my beautiful child. Take a long, deep, cleansing breath of this miraculous new air. Let the absolute, profound tranquility of my eternal presence completely settle into the deepest, quietest corners of your soul. The exhausting, lonely battle is officially over. The magnificent victory has been definitively won. The heavy, suffocating darkness has completely retreated, and the warm, golden sun is shining brilliantly on your tear-stained face. You are completely safe. You are overwhelmingly loved, and you are entirely free from the prison of your own perfectionism. Step forward boldly into the magnificent, overflowing abundance I have carefully prepared for you. You are forever changed, securely and eternally anchored in the absolute wisdom of trusting me with every single breath of your newly restored life. Lord, I come before you today with a heart completely overflowing with gratitude, reverence, and absolute awe. Thank you for being the faithful, unshakable anchor in the middle of my darkest, most terrifying storms, never once letting me drift into the freezing waters. Thank you for loving me enough to gently break my fierce self-reliance, and for holding me so securely while you patiently rebuilt my fragile, shattered faith. I praise you for this beautiful, miraculous provision, and I fully acknowledge that you alone are the brilliant, sovereign author of my rescue. Please give me the daily strength and the profound spiritual wisdom to never return to the exhausting, heavy chains of my own anxiety. Keep my eyes permanently and fiercely fixed on your majestic face, and help me to walk closely with you through every new, beautiful chapter of this completely transformed life. I trust you completely with my entire future, knowing deep within my soul that your plans for me are always good, always perfect, and always filled with an unending, radiant hope. In Jesus' name, amen.